From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on April 8th, 2025 from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. Sorry we're late, but we're here. On this episode of The Lede, we preview the week ahead, even though we're kind of already in it. That's okay. We catch you up on the budget action in Washington as Republicans get closer to implementing major Trump administration priorities. But back in Columbia, we take you through the confirmation hearing of Department of Public Health nominee Dr. Ed Simmer, which got shot down. And we also hear from DAODAS Director Sara Goldsby about what's fueling a decline in drug overdose deaths and how the abrupt end of some federal funding could disrupt community providers on the front lines of addiction and abuse. And also, happy faux crossover day. We are not allowed to celebrate anymore, but today would be that day. The Lede remembers. Let us remember you. Tell us what you remember. 803-563-7169. Any number of things. Wide open. Let us know how your stock portfolio's doing. What's your net worth? Is it positive? Is it negative? Have you listened to Scott Morgan's episodes of Indebted lately? Make you thinking maybe you should revisit those? Let us know. 803-563-7169. And thank you in advance. Let's see what's on tap this week in the State House. The House is in session. The Senate is in perfunctory session as the Finance Committee, which is made up of half of the Senate, finishes up the budget before starting debate on April 21st. Happy crossover week, even though we are no longer celebrating because they changed that rule. Talk more about that in a minute. Up in Congress, they are also in session this week, but will be on a 2-week break starting next week. Perfect time to launch a campaign for governor. 2026 watch.
2026 watch.
For the record, I will be off next week, so how about the week after? Thank you. Happy crossover day. Just kidding. Like I've said multiple times already, just kidding. Both chambers eliminated this sacred holiday this year, saying it was an artificial deadline and a convenient excuse for killing bills, among other reasons. But it also signified the start of the sprint to sine die, the last day of session on May 8th. Remember, crossover day meant you had to have one bill reach the other chamber, or it would take a greater number of votes in the other chamber to get it passed there. It was always kind of a thing where people would be like, well, we have until crossover. If it doesn't make crossover, then it's dead. It's a bit of a demarcation line, but then also a convenient excuse according to leadership. Now, our good friend of the pod, Mayan Schechter, compiled a list of the top 5 bills to watch in this final month. You are not going to believe number 4. Which is really like give or take 12 working days. This final month is 12 working days, essentially, since the House is on break next week. Mayan put this list together for the State House Gavel, our blog that keeps you up to date throughout the week on State House action at southcarolinapublicradio.org. She does yeoman's work, folks. You know it's important if I'm saying yeoman's work. I contribute, but she makes it work. Now, leadership says May 8th is indeed the final day, the sine die. They will be in Columbia, except for budget and any vetoes after that. So no conference committees of House and Senate lawmakers hashing out differences on bills that have passed both chambers. On May 8th, bills are done. So where do we go from here? Tort reform and liquor liability, number 1. Senators are still waiting to see if the House will take a bite of S-244, the expansive tort reform legislation that took about 4 weeks of debate in the Senate. And it covers everything from lawsuits, auto insurance, liquor liability, and damage compensation. Now, the bill passed the Senate after, like we said, 4 weeks, and now it's in the House Judiciary Committee, which so far has not scheduled a hearing, a little worrisome. Now, remember, the House unanimously passed a standalone liquor liability bill that it says answers to a more immediate problem for bars and restaurants that say they could shutter their doors for good if they don't lower their insurance premiums. That bill, H. 3497, passed the House and is blocked on the Senate calendar right now. Number two, energy capacity. The Senate passed H. 3309 last week. That's House Speaker Merle Smith's bill that he says aims to meet South Carolina's growing energy needs. It streamlines the regulatory process, requires agencies to act faster on new utility applications, and gives Santee Cooper the green light to work with Dominion Energy on a new gas-fired plant in Colleton County. Now that it's out of the Senate, the House can decide whether to amend it or kick it to a conference committee so both sides can negotiate a compromise. I'm going to say conference committee. Number three, healthcare consolidation. For the second time, lawmakers will try to consolidate 3 healthcare-related agencies after similar legislation was foiled last year. This Bill S2 has already cleared the Senate and a House committee, leaving it sitting on the House calendar. It would create a new Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities by consolidating the departments of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, Disabilities and Special Needs, and Mental Health into one. Next up, number 4, like I was telling you.
Number 4.
School vouchers, remember that, huh? The so-called Education Scholarship Trust Fund proposal, S62, that would, as amended by the House, use taxpayer dollars to fund K-12 private school tuition vouchers and other education-related costs. It's back in the Senate, though it has not officially been read over the desk, even though it was passed on February 27th out of the House, 80-32. It's not a usual thing. Usually it gets back over and it's right across the desk. So methinks there's some backroom conversations going on before it gets to the Senate calendar where they will either decide to approve the House changes or go to a conference committee. Again, there's some major differences there, especially since the Senate approved using lottery funds versus the House version using taxpayer dollars. Either way, Lede says, we'll see at the state Supreme Court. And number 5. Big number 5, most recent one we've been talking about, H4216, the income tax plan. You guys knew that. You just knew it from the number. That was a big one. Republican leaders came out with that big press conference, a big, beautiful press conference. And initially it called to replace the state's personal income tax rate structure to a flat 3.99%. Very low, 3.99% for all filers, and then eventually going to 2.49% if revenue growth is strong in future years. But it's hit some turbulence. It's hit some bumps in the air. I'm going to mix metaphors just for fun because there were some state estimates that showed nearly 60% of filers would see their taxes go up, which is the opposite of a tax cut. But again, it would go down eventually. The bill is still in the Ways and Means Committee in the House. So, a lot going on there when we're looking at where things stand with a month left in session. But next up, we're still in Columbia, where last week, Dr. Ed Simmer, the governor's pick to lead the newly formed Department of Public Health, was back on the hot seat for the second day of his confirmation hearing before the Senate Medical Affairs Committee. In his previous hearing, Simmer read a 14-page opening statement, and in this hearing on Thursday, he responded to accusations, conflated theories, and straight-up misinformation about his professional experience and how he handled the state's COVID response and vaccine rollout under the governor's direction, starting back in early 2021 when he led then DHEC, which has now been broken up. Simmer faced contentious Republican senators in that committee, including Johns Island Senator Matt Lieber, who had this line of questioning, which at one point Chairman Danny Verdin reminds Lieber and the audience that there is indeed decorum in that committee. Take a listen.
I think about the sheriffs and the teachers and the nurses in Charleston County that lost their job because they were told you take the vaccine or you're out. That probably wasn't necessary, right? I mean,
no, I don't think that was a good idea
and
at all.
In 2021, it probably wasn't even necessary.
I certainly don't think it was a good idea, nor was it necessary. I agree with you,
Did you
sir.
think about in 2021 that it wasn't necessary?
Yes.
Did you speak out?
No, sir, because again, I don't think it's my place to tell a local elected official or a local business owner how to conduct their business.
There you go, sort of twisting my words there. I'm not asking you to give an order or dictate policy to anyone. I'm asking you to speak up as our expert on health. Did you speak up as our South Carolina expert on health on something that you would fully admit that you felt was unnecessary and not good for society? To fire these firemen and these police officers and these educators and all these other folks, you didn't speak up.
I don't think that's my place, sir.
Whose place is it? Who's the expert? Who's the government entity in the Constitution that says we have a right to petition our government for grievances? Who do we petition?
In the case of, I guess if that was City of Charleston, I suppose the mayor, the city council. That would be the right people to petition, I believe. They're the elected officials. They have the ultimate authority.
Well, not everyone in your position throughout the many states agreed with that sort of laissez-faire policy, and you definitely didn't have it when it came to COVID shots. As soon as CDC said these folks were eligible, you were on it. You wanted mobile units, you wanted free beer, you wanted $1 million lottery you wanted everything that you could possibly get as many vaccines in as possible. You weren't laissez-faire about that. But the doctor, one second,
Yes,
we'll wrap it up and give you a question.
Yes, sir.
The Surgeon General out of Florida, he didn't adopt this sort of laissez-faire when it came to personal rights and freedom. He was really active and cautionary about the shot, especially with children, especially with kids. You know, kids that weren't getting it, kids that weren't suffering with it. He was pretty strong about, you know, that's not necessarily a good idea maybe, but you have every right. Take all this information you can get, make your decision. But me as an expert, I'm going to weigh in here, and I'm going to say this is probably not a good idea. He did that often in many parts of this, the mask, the separation, the silly six, the arrows on the floor in the grocery stores, the guy that was shrimping in the creek near my house with a mask on, those sort of things.
We'll have order. Senator, suspend.
Thank you.
Senator, we are going to give Dr. Zimmer the opportunity to respond on the question of laissez-faire. I'll remind all senators that we comport to the rules of the Senate, Rule 7C being specific to how we maintain the decorum of the Senate. Senators are prohibited from eliciting responses of any kind. So the decorum of the Senate requires, at the insistence of the presiding officer, whether it be the president or a chairman of a committee, absolute passive participation. So I'll encourage everyone to be mindful. Dr. Zimmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Lieber, in response to your statement about laissez-faire, again, I don't think it's particularly productive for me to publicly call out people. I don't think that leads to the behavior change we want to see. Did I have businesses that called me and asked for my advice? Yes, and I did talk with them. And when I did, I advised them not to do it. But do I think publicly calling them out was a good approach? No, sir, I don't think it's effective. I will say also, sir, that I never recommended that a business or anyone, for that matter, mandate vaccines for anyone. I did not think that was a good idea. I do not believe you will ever find in the record where I said businesses should mandate that people that work for them or that come into their establishment should get a vaccine, because I don't think that's effective and I don't think it's right. It's not respecting people's rights, and I don't think you should have to get a vaccine to maintain your employment.
So despite making these statements and showing his merits, senators still sullied Zimmer. Also, clarification on that clip with Lieber, Zimmer never called for incentives to get vaccinated like the $1 million giveaway in Ohio, though he did call for mobile units to get to people in areas that did not have the infrastructure to get the vaccine rolled out. In the end, the move to send Zimmer's nomination to the Senate floor failed by a vote of 5-12. All 12 senators who opposed Zimmer were Republicans. Only one Republican, Beaufort Republican Senator Tom Davis, joined Democratic Senators Brett Hutto, Margie Bright Matthews, Ronnie Sabb, and Dion Tedder to advance his nomination. So again, unclear what the next path forward is for Zimmer, who is still in that acting director capacity at the Department of Public Health. But also, yikes, if senators are nitpicking this much over innuendo and assumption, then the upcoming impeachment trial of Curtis Loftus, the treasurer, should be next level. Because there's some audits, a lot of details that they can talk about versus innuendo. Now, keeping with our medical portion of this pod, Sara Goldsby, the director of the State Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, DAODAS, spoke with me last week on This Week in South Carolina about the drop in drug overdose deaths in 2023, which is the most recent year data is available for. That year, 2,157 people died from overdoses, which was a 6.1% drop from the year before and the first decline in a decade. Sara tells us what drove that and how federal funding is affecting operations.
After a long trajectory of increases, the 6% decrease tells us that
the efforts across the state and local communities and the support from the federal government, all of that coordination, collaboration is really making an impact and yielding these results. I think we're even further encouraged to see that the provisional CDC drug overdose data is also telling us that the 2024 overdose deaths, when those are finalized, they will be lower again. And so we're moving in the right direction.
So if it's going to be backed up there, what do you think is attributable to this? Is it just the policies you've put in place, or some of the ways that you guys have rolled initiatives out in the communities? Is it federal funding, state funding? How does it all work together?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. And I think many states across the nation are seeing these results and saying the same thing, right? It's been the collaboration, the coordination, and the robust effort over the years to really yield these results from policy, right? We've had a lot of policy from our state house that's made naloxone available, decreased the availability of prescription drugs in an overprescribing way, and then even more recently allowed our law enforcement officers to really go after the traffickers of the deadly fentanyl that we have on the streets. I think the widespread evidence-based strategies that have been implemented from prevention efforts and making the public very aware of the dangers of the illicit drug supply, the dangers of misusing prescription drugs, that's come a long way. And then the intervention efforts and the widespread availability of naloxone and those intervention methods like fentanyl test strips, having those available by community distributors, by our Department of Public Health, and by the street outreach groups and the recovery organizations that are reaching the population that are using drugs. All of that access to those intervention methods is making a big dent in the overdose death rates.
And this is something that you're seeing decreases. So, I mean, is it just a matter of having systemically chipped away at this to really get into this position where we're seeing not just a decrease in 2023, but also a potential decrease in 2024?
The widespread understanding that we cannot misuse prescription drugs, that the illicit drug supply is deadly, and that there really is no safe substance to be ingesting in that illicit drug supply, along with, broader access to addiction treatment, addiction medications, and those medications that treat opioid use disorder specifically. The access to that has made a serious impact in people's just understanding that substance use disorder, opioid use disorder, these are chronic diseases that are preventable, can be treated, are sometimes deadly, but people are finding recovery from them as well. And I think getting that message out, that hopeful message that people are recovering, can recover, do recover, and live a thriving life, it's all working to address some of the stigma that I think we had previously seen as well. So I think it's really just a holistic kind of response and wide-scale effort on the topic.
When it comes to drug test kit, preventative overdose kits that you can get available at your county public health offices, the misconception would be that the state is helping folks do drugs when in fact you're just making sure that folks are going to do drugs, so you might as well at least test it to see if that's the case. You're trying to prevent that as much as possible. Yeah. Tell us about what you've been seeing when it comes to getting those kits, whether it's for overdoses or for drug testing, out into the community, and maybe what the data is showing you where maybe you need to focus a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, we really don't encourage any drug use at all. No drug use is good, but people are going to use drugs, and we want them to be able to prevent their own death if possible. And so having the ability to test a substance to know if there is fentanyl in it before it is ingested is saving lives, and that includes testing substances like cocaine and methamphetamine that now have fentanyl in them. We know that the DEA data is telling us that the illicit pills that have been in the illicit market that look like a prescription pill, they've been deadly, right? And we know that in 2023, 7 out of 10 pills contained a deadly amount of fentanyl in them. That's decreasing now, but people are also able to at least test and know whatever substance they're about to ingest have fentanyl. They could be taking their lives in their hands.
And when we talk about drug interdiction efforts, we talk about what's happening at the federal level too when it comes to, declaring fentanyl as a national crisis, and of course resulting in different ways to attack that, whether that's through trade or other avenues. But what are we seeing when it comes to the local level, the state level, when you work with folks at SLED, maybe county sheriffs, how they address this and what tools they have and maybe what more they need to address this?
Incredible efforts by our public safety folks in South Carolina, and we talk to our law enforcement partners every day. They are lifting mountains. They're doing everything they can on interdiction to get to the traffickers, to get to the supply, and to prevent that supply from reaching the citizens. And so it's been amazing what we've seen them them do with their undercover sting operations, really getting at some of these operations where they're manufacturing pills right here in South Carolina that reach our population. We see impact when they have an operation go under and they seize those pills and they get those traffickers, an immediate impact in lessening the overdose incidents, right after that in the area. So they've been working very hard, but it's really about that supply and demand factor.
And it's constant.
Yeah.
When we talk about, funding all this and tackling these problems, we look at federal funding. You all receive a good bit of federal funding too, but that seems to be in jeopardy right now to the tune of a couple million, and that's some money that came to you all through COVID that was set to expire, I think, later this year, but still money that people rely on nonetheless. Tell us about that challenge and how maybe you can work around these challenges.
Yeah, so we had some abrupt termination of federal grants, but what I really want to say is the investment in the publicly funded addiction system nationwide and in our state through the block grants that come to us for substance use really are the foundation of the public prevention, treatment, and recovery services that the citizens have access to. And so we're looking very closely now at our budget. We want to make sure that everything is stable and we can, in fact, hopefully enhance just the base of the public addiction system so that folks, especially the folks without insurance, can access treatment regardless of their ability to pay.
Find that episode and more on youtube.com/South Carolina ETV. Now, a brief economic update. Conditions are still very volatile right now, to say the least. We're looking at the Doppler radar, and boy, these storms are moving across the whole board. It's a great time to buy the dip if you can find the right dip. Who doesn't like a dip, right? Dip?
Yes.
Let us know where the dip is. Nevertheless, since President Trump rolled out his tariffs last week, markets have lost trillions of dollars in value. Your 401k, my pension, short-term, long-term traders, it's been a wild few days. Countries have responded, and the Trump trade war, which has slowly grown over the weeks, is fully underway. In a Truth Social post Monday morning, Trump wrote, quote, "Oil prices are down, interest rates are down, the slow-moving Fed should cut rates. Food prices are down, there is no inflation," all caps, quote, claiming his tariffs are bringing in, quote, billions of dollars a week, quote, from what he called, quote, abusing countries, quote. Now, I'm going to have a full podcast for you next week with the latest on all the moves from this week, but I want to include some econ talk with Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond President Tom Barkin, who has given several speeches lately, including one before the Council on Foreign Relations on April 1st, which, of course, was a week ago. Might as well have been a year ago, but this was the day before the tariff announcements, so Barkin still speaks about what's going on with market conditions and fundamentals, so it still resonates, and I thought it was still worth sharing. So here's Tom Barkin.
If you could just go back to the end of the year, December 31st, everything looked great. I mean, GDP growth was 2.5%, unemployment was 4%, inflation was headed down nicely. Business optimism had surged in November. Small business optimism jumped the most it had in 40 years, and then jumped again in December. And if you had asked anyone to price in the risk of a recession, they would have, gone to somewhere close to zero. So that was December. We're obviously another quarter in. We're 3 months later, and I think what we said 2 weeks ago is also true today, which is that the numbers are kind of in the same place. I mean, GDP will be a little bit softer this quarter, but there's some stuff about import-exports that are in there. Consumer spending maybe is a little slower. Unemployment has stayed stable. The inflation numbers were a little higher than we wanted. But the numbers are not really the story. The story is uncertainty, and I described it in a speech last week as we're all out here driving in the fog. And it's really foggy. The high beams don't help. And what are you going to do in the fog? And I talked to businesses, I talked to consumers, and it's even true for the Fed. You don't know where policy is going to land. You don't know what the implications of that are going to be. And it's very hard to make investment decisions, hiring decisions, spending decisions with that amount of uncertainty. And so, financial markets will tell us what they think as opposed to me telling them. But I have to think that part of the flattening of the rate curve has been pricing in more recession risk.
Your Chicago colleague, Austin Goldsby, heard him speak about a month ago, and he likes to use the phrase that it's hard to navigate because there's a lot of dust in the air. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, this is likely to turn into a sandstorm with announcement of trade policy. How should the Fed be approaching this degree of uncertainty in terms of methodology?
Well, I think you've got to understand what the conditions are. And there's always stuff that is exogenous, right? Whether it's, oil price spikes or wars in countries or market movements and fiscal policy. And so you have to take it for what it is. And we'll see what it is. By the way, we'll see where it lands, because I think a lot of people think there'll be some back and forth before it lands. And I think you want to see what it is and then go. And then once you know what it is, you can analyze and assess what the impact would be. We have some indicators of that. There were tariffs put on 5 years ago, 2018, 2019, and you can look at the studies of what the impact was, and then you can compare these to that and sort of play it out. But until you know what the policies are going to be and how long they're going to last, I think it's awfully hard to react to dust or fog or sandstorms.
Again, still very volatile times, and while markets appear to be rebounding as of our taping on Tuesday, Wednesday is when these tariffs are set to go into effect, and if you're not already seeing price increases, you soon will, and those ripple effects are long and wide. Let me know if you pre-ordered the Nintendo Switch. Oh wait, can't. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here, along with A.T. Shire, lead podcast producer, who's fresh.
Yes.
Fresh back from Las Vegas, City of Sin.
The city of
Sin. City.
It's I'm happy
Sinner
to be home.
City.
I gotta say, I'm very happy to be back in South Carolina with humidity in the air and not dry desert air. Yeah, it truly was like that. And I think I've finally come to the realization, second time I've been in Vegas now, it's just not a place for me. I don't like it that much there. I'm not big into gambling. None of the shows spoke to me. It was fun. I was there with producer Sean and Caitlin, my wife, and his wife. And we had a good time. We went out to dinner. We ate some good food. And the company was good. But the place, I don't think I like it. It's very strange. They try to trap you places, There's no good way to get anywhere.
No.
They want you trapped in a spot, and they just want to wring everything they can out of you, wrest your money away from you.
It's like our podcast listeners. I mean...
Yeah. If I had to describe my mental image of a podcast listener, it's me and Gavin holding you upside down, shaking coins out of your pants. That's what it feels like in Vegas.
Of course, yeah. Everyone's running a scam on you. It's Vegas.
Yes, everywhere.
They're all smiling. They're holding their smiles, hoping that you're going to say yes or something. You're okay.
Yeah. People just walking around handing you stuff outside, and you're just like, no, I don't want that.
Well, at least it wasn't the heat, you're not.
It was actually, it was really nice outside. It was 72 every day.
You have to have a lot of money and willing to just blow it, I feel like, to have a good time, a real good time in Vegas. And there's so many other things you can do and actually have a true good time somewhere else for half the price as Vegas. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Spectacle, I get, but you were also there for a work conference. This was not for leisure.
It doesn't matter.
But it's still ugh, God, it reminds me of our trip to Orlando. You guys got to Google that one. The Gatorland episode is
Gatorland.
Lead lore.
Absolute ripper. Great song we wrote in that one. But Gavin, you also had a big weekend.
Yeah,
it wasn't just me jet-setting around, being in...
Lucky to be a lady.
Quite frankly, one really big turbulence in the air. But Gavin, you had a big time.
Well, yeah, I know. I had a wedding to go to on Saturday. Did dance to some Frank Sinatra, so there's a little tie in there. But it wasn't quite that I was talking about that brought me luck. Okay. Not talking about White Diamonds, Elizabeth Taylor's exclusive fragrance available at Macy's, your fragrance destination.
Yep.
No, what brought me luck was this morning, a new fear was unlocked in me.
I love that. This is good for you, you're saying.
Sure. We just got out of Mercury in retrograde, which, again, I told you I don't really believe in. But when you look back about how horrible things have been recently, not talking about
and
new
Mercury
stuff,
was
there's just a lot of things.
And it was there.
Last week was pretty rough. There's been some rough things, some personal things.
There's
not me directly, but
some Mercury and
now,
retrograde
you get
stuff.
to blame it on. Yeah, you can blame it on. And of course, daylight savings time happened during Mercury retrograde, I think, too. So it's all there.
I really cannot wait to see.
Wait for my thesis. It's going to be on our Substack.
He's hid from me what he's going to say here. And I'm very interested.
Okay, a lot to say. I'm like, okay, we're safe. We're out of retrograde. Well, not so much. Not in the shower. One of the most vulnerable places you'll ever be. We've all seen the movie Psycho.
Well, you're in the shower and you know you're alone, but you hear bumps outside. You're like, well, this is the moment the killer's coming. The killer is coming.
Now,
to
the bumps were not outside. They were upstairs.
Okay.
I live in a duplex. I've been there for a while. I love it. I'm in Rosewood.
It's a great spot.
You know, I had my landlord that came over the other day, like, yeah, you know, we're going to work on the guy's shower upstairs, the bathroom upstairs. They got galvanized pipes, so everything's clogged up. That's what happens. So they're redoing. I'm like, great. And I also said, hey, whenever you're doing stuff in my bathroom, can you give me a new shower head? You know, I'm not one to ask for much.
No, you
but
don't need
I was
a
like,
lot.
I need a new shower head.
Don't need a lot.
My brothers just visited like a couple weekends ago, and they were just taken aback by how I function.
It takes
It's
the eyes of
disgusting.
others to see how you've been living. Yeah, I get it.
I don't ask for much. I'm adaptable.
It took me years to get him to fix his handle on his fridge of just constant
it's
shaming.
still broke. It's still broke. I need to super glue it back. Anyway, you don't want to go in the kitchen. Okay, a lot to say. There was so they're like, oh, we're gonna replace your whole bathroom. I'm like, oh, great, cool. I'll be able to soak in the tub finally.
There you go. Take a soak.
I'm in the shower this morning, a little late for work, and I hear the hammering above my head as I'm lathering.
Yes.
Going in,
Frothing.
I've already like rinsed off, doing a really quick one, and I was like, I don't think that the ceiling's gonna cave in on me, right?
I can squeeze a few
I
more
can't-
minutes out here. Yeah.
I can condition the hair, right?
Yeah.
Really tempting fate. And I'm hearing the hammering, and I'm hearing things. And I'm like, surely, no one told me that anything would fall through.
Yes.
I immediately rinse, cut the water, and all of a sudden, part of the roof comes in. And I'm like, God! It couldn't have possibly happened, right? It wasn't supposed. They would not in a neighborhood like this.
No.
Not with these neighbors. They're such good people. I never would have thought it would happen here. Well, I escaped death. And again, was it just a small little bit of drywall? Sure. But it was death.
It's not what it's about.
It was death.
It's not what it's about.
If you've ever seen Final Destination, our generation,
We know.
we harbor a lot of that trauma.
Well, I don't drive behind log trucks.
Oh, absolutely not.
Everyone knows about the log trucks.
I said
Stifler, he didn't make it through that movie. he got bad.
So yeah, no, new fear unlocked, survived. But
Very good.
thank you, but no, thank you.
Well, listeners, call in, wish Gavin well.
Please.
This is a new lease on life.
I'm taking showers in sinks now. I'm going over to AT's house. The fear is real.
He hit straight cherries on the slot machine
of life.
of life, living through this experience, okay?
Tell us about your Mercury and retrograde experience or your Vegas experiences.
What's the difference at this point, people? Yeah, it's a lot. I'm so happy to be home. I'm
Welcome
so
back.
happy I just got to get home and create this content for you.
Thank you.
Gavin, give him the old outro.
All right, folks. Let us know what's up with you. 803-563-7169. We gave you so many prompts. There has to be something must have stuck. You can always show us your appreciation as well by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. And stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina. I was in the shower,
Oh, okay.
and it happened.
The incident? Oh, God. Okay. Oh, God.
It's honestly not going to be what you think, but I'm going to keep you in suspense.
That's fine. I like that just
No,
fine.
this is great.